Ambassador Chen Wei stepped out of the transport shuttle and felt her breath catch in her throat. The station stretched before her like a dream made real. Towers of crystal and metal spiraled upward, connected by bridges that glowed with soft light. Beings of a dozen different shapes moved through the plaza, their voices mixing into a peaceful hum. This was Concordat Prime, the heart of galactic civilization. "Welcome, Ambassador Chen," said the tall figure, gliding toward her. Its skin shimmered like oil on water, constantly shifting colors. "I am Speaker Valenus of the Concordat Council. We have waited so long to meet your species." Chen smiled and extended her hand. Valenus studied it for a moment, before gently touching her palm with 3 long fingers. The gesture felt rehearsed, like something practiced many times. "The honor is ours," Chen replied. "Humanity has dreamed of this moment for generations." Valenus led her through the station. Everywhere Chen looked, she saw perfection. Clean streets, smiling faces, art and music floating through the air. No weapons, no guards, no conflict. "We are the Galactic Concordat," Valenus explained as they walked. 12 species bound by the most sacred covenant in the galaxy. The promise of no more wars. Well, how long has there been peace?" Chen asked. 50,000 years, Valenus said with obvious pride. 50,000 years since the last war. 50,000 years since violence stained our stars. Chen wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe that beings could truly transcend their violent natures. But something felt wrong. Her training as a historian made her notice details others might miss. The aliens spoke about their past with identical phrases. "We transcended violence. We chose enlightenment. We became civilized." The words sounded memorized, like lines from a script everyone had learned. Over the next few days, Chen attended meetings with the council. They showed her wonders. Medical technology that could cure any disease. Energy systems that powered entire worlds. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They offered all of it to humanity. "Join us," said Counselor Thrain, a being that looked like a floating collection of geometric shapes. "Become part of our Concordat. Share in our peace." "What do we need to do?" Chen asked. Thrain's shapes rearranged themselves in what might have been a smile. "Simple things. Destroy your warships. They are tools of the old ways. Submit to protective custodianship while we help your species evolve beyond violence. Accept our guidance in reshaping your culture." Chen felt ice form in her stomach. "Reshape our culture?" "Certain human traits are concerning," Valenus said gently. "Your competitive nature, your celebration of warriors, your stories that glorify conflict. These are remnants of a primitive past. We can help you grow beyond them." "How long does custodianship last?" Chen asked. "Until your species is ready," Valenus replied. "Sometimes a few centuries. Sometimes longer. The Wythran required 12,000 years before they were deemed safe." That night, Chen couldn't sleep. She wandered the guest quarters, studying the art on the walls. Every piece showed peaceful scenes. Beings working together. Species holding hands beneath alien suns. Not a single image showed conflict, or struggle, or even disagreement. She accessed the station's database, searching for historical records. Most were available, but when she tried to access anything about the period before the No More Wars Covenant, she hit walls. Classified. Restricted. Sealed by council decree. Why would a peaceful civilization hide its past? Chen found references to something called memorial zones. Entire star systems marked in red on galactic charts. Forbidden to all traffic. No explanation given. Just warnings that entering them violated the most serious Concordat laws. She requested permission to visit one. The request was denied within minutes. "Those places are sacred," Valenus explained when she asked why. They must not be disturbed. It is our most ancient law. But what happened there? Chen pressed. Valenus's colors darkened. It is not discussed. Please do not ask again. Chen tried other approaches. She spoke with younger aliens, hoping they might be less guarded. But they knew even less than their elders. History before the Covenant was simply not taught. The past is pain, one young being told her. Why remember pain when we have peace? On her 7th day at Concordat Prime, Chen took a walk through the lower levels of the station. She wanted to see places where diplomats didn't go. The maintenance corridors, the cargo bays, the places where real life happened. She found herself in a dim hallway when she heard a sound. Coughing. Someone was hurt. Chen followed the sound to a small alcove. A being lay there, different from any species she had met. Its body was covered in scars, and one of its 3 arms ended in a crude, mechanical replacement. It looked ancient and broken. Help, the being whispered when it saw her. Chen knelt beside it. What happened? Should I call medical? No. The being grabbed her arm with surprising strength. No, Concordat. They find me. They finish what they started. I don't understand, Chen said. The being pressed something into her hand. A small data crystal. My species. They killed us. Almost all. I hide. For 2,000 years, I hide. It coughed again, and Chen saw its blood was nearly black. They lie. They all lie. The civilized massacre. They call it enlightenment. They call it peace. But we remember. The dead remember. Who killed your species? Chen asked, the being's eyes fixed on hers. The Concordat, the same ones who smile at you now. The same ones who want you to give up your weapons, your ships, your ability to fight back. Its breathing grew harsh. Don't trust them. Don't believe the peace. It's built on bones, mountains of bones. I need to get you help. Chen started. No time. I'm dying. Been dying for weeks. But I needed to warn someone. Needed one species to know. The being's grip weakened. Read the crystal. Learn the truth. Then run. Run fast. Run far. Before they do to your species what they did to mine. The being went still. Its eyes stayed open, staring at nothing. Chen stood in the hallway, holding the crystal, her heart pounding. She looked around, but no one else had seen. She slipped the crystal into her pocket and walked quickly back to her quarters. That night, she locked her door and activated every privacy shield her quarters had. Then she inserted the crystal into her personal computer and began to read. What she found made her hands shake. What she found changed everything. Chen stared at the screen until her eyes burned. The files on the crystal were fragments, pieces of a puzzle that had been deliberately broken and scattered. But even fragments told a terrible story. The data was old. Some files were more than 50,000 years old. They came from hundreds of different species, written in languages the crystal's translation system struggled to interpret. But the message was always the same. The Concordat was not built on peace. It was built on blood. Chen read testimony after testimony. A species called the Vroth had refused to join the early Concordat. They believed in honor through combat. They had warrior traditions stretching back millions of years. The Concordat declared them incompatible with lasting peace. The Concordat fleet arrived at their homeworld with an ultimatum: submit or be civilized by force. The Vroth chose to fight. They were warriors, after all. It was what they knew. The war lasted 6 months. Then, the Concordat deployed something the files called civilization engines. Chen didn't understand the exact technology, but the result was clear. Every Vroth world was sterilized, every ship destroyed, every station burned. Not a single member of their species survived. The Concordat called it the first step toward true peace. Chen found records of another species called the Kelthara. They were not warriors. They were traders and explorers. But they refused to destroy their defensive fleets. They wanted to remain independent, to chart their own course. The Concordat was patient with them. They offered treaties and agreements. They promised protection if the Kelthara would just accept protective custodianship. The Kelthara kept refusing, politely, but firmly. After 200 years of refusals, the Concordat stopped asking. The files showed brief, clinical reports. Kelthara question resolved. Systems quarantined. Memorial protocols initiated. Chen found a video file from a Kelthara scientist. The being spoke to the camera with desperate calm, even as alarms blared behind them. They're here. The Peacebringers. They've blocked every jump point. Our defensive platforms are gone. They say we had our chance. They say this is for the good of the galaxy. They say, the video ended in static. Chen counted the species. The files mentioned 217 extinct civilizations. Some were wiped out in wars. Others were starved through blockades. A few were infected with bioweapons that the Concordat claimed were cultural correction viruses designed to eliminate aggressive traits. One file made Chen want to vomit. It was a Concordat internal memo from something called the Purification Era. A bureaucrat discussing the processing of a species called the Anthar. The Anthar have proven difficult to civilize through standard methods. Their biological imperative toward territoriality makes cultural reform inefficient. Recommend full genetic restructuring or elimination. Cost-benefit analysis attached. The Anthar were restructured. The files showed pictures of the new Anthar. They looked similar to the originals but moved differently. Their eyes were empty. They smiled constantly. They no longer had territories, or families, or individual names. They were perfectly peaceful, perfectly obedient, perfectly broken. Chen spent 3 days reviewing the files. She barely slept. She barely ate. She just read and read, watching a genocide disguised as enlightenment. On the 4th day, she received a message from an unknown sender. Just 3 words. You are discovered. Chen acted immediately. She copied the files to every storage device she had. She encrypted them. She prepared emergency protocols. Then, she waited. The knock came an hour later. Ambassador Chen, said Valenis through her door. We need to speak with you. Chen opened the door. Valenis stood there with 4 Concordat guards. They wore armor, which Chen had never seen before. The Concordat claimed they had no military. You accessed restricted materials, Valenis said. Their voice was still polite, but something cold lurked beneath the words. I received them from someone, Chen said. A being who was dying. Ah. Valenis rippled with what might have been sadness. You met a survivor. We thought we had found them all. A tragic case. The being was mentally unstable, disturbed by ancient history. You should not trust anything they told you. I read the files, Chen said. The corridor went silent. Even the guards seemed to freeze. Then you understand why certain knowledge must be controlled, Valenis said carefully. The past was painful, difficult, but necessary. Every species in the Concordat accepted this. We ended war. Ambassador. Forever. Some species could not see the wisdom of this. They chose their own fate. Action. Anasterzalen. Anasterzalen. We will typically. Ambassador 2. You killed them, Chen said. We saved the galaxy, Valenis corrected. Before the Concordat, wars consumed entire sectors. Billions died in pointless conflicts. We stopped that. Yes, some species resisted. Yes, we had to use force. But we created 50,000 years of peace. Can you imagine what that means? 50,000 years without major war? It's not peace if you murder everyone who disagrees with you, Chen said. Valenis's colors shifted to something dark and sharp. Your species faces a choice, Ambassador. You can join us willingly and be guided to civilization. Or you can learn what happens to species that choose the old ways. We hoped you would be wise. Humans seemed so promising. Chen felt her heart hammering. What are you saying? The council meets tomorrow, Valenus said. They will vote on your species. The options are custodianship or quarantine. After this conversation, I suspect they will choose quarantine. It would be unfortunate, but necessary. You would genocide humanity? Chen asked. We would protect the galaxy from another warlike species, Valenus replied. It is what we do. What we have always done. What we will continue to do. For as long as necessary. Valenus turned to leave, then paused. You should know that we have positioned fleets around your sol system. As a precaution. If the Council votes for quarantine, the process will be swift. Your species will not suffer long. They left. The guards remained outside Chen's door. Chen immediately activated her emergency beacon. Her ship responded. Captain Williams' voice came through encrypted channels. Ambassador, we're reading concordant warships entering the system. What's happening? Captain, transmit everything in my secure files to Earth. Maximum priority. Then get ready to run. Run where? Williams asked. Home, Chen said. Fast as you can. Chen gathered what she could carry and moved to the emergency airlock her ship had secretly installed. The Concordat thought human paranoia was a flaw. Chen was grateful for it now. As she reached the airlock, another message came through. This one had a sender ID. Tellurian. She didn't know who Tellurian was. But when she opened the message, she saw a being with gray skin and too many eyes. They spoke quickly, desperately. Ambassador Chen, I am an archivist. I have watched the Concordat for 900 years. I helped you access those files. I wanted someone to know the truth. They have found me now. I will not survive the day. The being glanced over their shoulder. Tell your species. The Concordat destroyed my people 3,000 years ago. We fought them. We lost. The survivors became archivists. We preserve the memory of every species they erased. It is all we can do. Tellurian looked back at the camera. They are coming for you now, your species. The vote is a formality. They decided days ago. Run, Ambassador. Run and fight. Do not become like us. Do not survive by forgetting who you were. The message ended. Chen sealed the airlock and blasted into space. Her ship was already moving, engines burning hard. Concordat vessels pursued, but her ship had been designed by a species that still remembered how to run from danger. As they jumped to faster than light speed, one final message reached her. It was Tellurian again. Just audio this time. Sounds of doors breaking. Voices shouting. Then Tellurian's voice, calm and clear. They're voting on your species tomorrow. Run. Then screaming. Then, silence. Chen sat in her chair, hands shaking. Beside her, Captain Williams looked pale. What did we walk into? Williams asked. A lie, Chen said. 50,000 years old. And soaked in blood. What do we do now? Chen looked at the data crystals in her hand. The testimony of 200 extinct species. The truth the Concordat had buried. Now, Chen said, now we go home, and we tell Earth exactly what peace costs in this galaxy. The United Nations Interstellar Assembly Hall fell silent as the last video file ended. 2,000 delegates from every nation on Earth had watched for 6 hours. They had seen the evidence, the testimonies, the confessions buried in ancient files, the truth about the galaxy's so-called peace. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo stood at the podium, her face carved from stone. Ambassador Chen has verified every file. Our computers have analyzed them. They are genuine. The Galactic Concordat has exterminated over 200 species in the last 50,000 years. A delegate from Brazil stood up. How long do we have? Chen, standing beside Okonkwo, answered. Their fleet is already positioned around our solar system. 63 capital ships, 400 support vessels. They're waiting for the Council's vote. Based on my conversation with Speaker Valenis, the vote is a formality. They've already decided. When? Asked the Chinese delegate. The vote happens in 36 hours, Chen said. After that, they'll begin what they call protective quarantine. Based on the files, that means they'll blockade Earth, destroy our orbital infrastructure, and wait for us to either surrender or starve. If we resist, they'll use their civilization engines. Those devices can make a planet uninhabitable. The hall erupted in voices: fear, anger, disbelief. Okonkwo let them talk for a minute, then raised her hand. The room quieted. We need to make a decision, Okonkwo said. We have 3 options. First, we can submit. Accept their protective custodianship. Give up our weapons. Let them reshape our culture. The files show some species survived this way. They weren't human anymore, someone shouted. You saw what they did to the Anthar. I know, Okonkwo said quietly. But we'd be alive. Second option. We can try to hide. Take our ships and run. Find some empty corner of the galaxy and hope they never find us. They found that dying alien after 2,000 years, Chen said. They have the whole galaxy mapped. There's nowhere to hide forever. Which brings us to option 3, Okonkwo continued. We fight. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Admiral James Park, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, stood up. With respect, we'd lose. They have technology centuries ahead of ours. They have numbers we can't match. We have 57 warships. They have hundreds. The math is simple. The math is never simple, said a new voice. Everyone turned. General Amara Okoro walked down the aisle. She was 78 years old, retired from the Nigerian military, now teaching military history at Oxford. She moved with a cane, but her eyes were sharp. General Okoro, Okonkwo said with surprise. I heard we were deciding whether to roll over and die, Okoro said. Thought I should have a say. She reached the podium and turned to face the assembly. I've spent my life studying war. Human war. Real war. Not the sanitized version these aliens remember. And I can tell you one thing. We can win. We? How? Park asked. They outnumber us 10-1. They outnumbered the Vietnamese too, Okoro said. The Americans had better weapons, more soldiers, complete air superiority. They lost. The British Empire was the most powerful force on Earth when 13 colonies decided to fight. The colonies won. Numbers don't tell the whole story. She tapped her cane on the floor. These aliens haven't fought a real war in 50,000 years. They've crushed rebellions. They've blockaded planets. They've exterminated species that couldn't fight back effectively. But they haven't faced an enemy that knows how to wage war. We barely know how to wage war in space, someone argued. We know how to wage human war, Okoro countered. Deception. Misdirection. Hit-and-run tactics. Making the enemy bleed for every inch. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We've learned lessons. They've forgotten. And, Chen spoke up. The files show something else. The Concordat doesn't just have military advantages. They have psychological ones. Every species they face has been conditioned to see them as the good guys. The peacebringers. The civilized ones. It makes species hesitate. Second-guess themselves. We won't hesitate, Okoro said. We know what they are now. We know. Peace is just the word they use for obedience. She looked around the room. My grandmother survived the Biafran War. My great-great-great-grandfather survived slavery. My ancestors survived because they refused to believe their oppressor's version of morality. The slave owners called slavery civilization. The colonizers called conquest enlightenment. The Concordat calls genocide peace. It's the same lie in a new language. The Brazilian delegate stood again. Even if we could win, what would it cost? Fewer than will die if we surrender, Okoro said bluntly. You saw the files. Species that accepted custodianship weren't saved. They were erased slowly instead of quickly. Their cultures disappeared. Their identities dissolved. After a few generations, they became copies of their conquerors. That's not survival. That's extinction. With extra steps, a young delegate from Kenya raised his hand. What about the other species in the Concordat? The ones who aren't on the council? If we broadcast these files, would they help us? Chen considered this. Maybe. The files show that many current Concordat species were conquered or coerced. They might have their own suppressed histories, but we can't count on them. They've been conditioned for thousands of years. We broadcast the files anyway, Okoro said. Make every species in the galaxy see what their peace costs. Some will ignore it. Some will deny it. But some will remember. And doubt is a weapon too. Okonkwo leaned forward. General Okoro, if we fight, what's our strategy? We don't fight their war, Okoro said. We fight ours. They'll expect us to mass our ships for a big battle. We don't do that. We scatter. We hit supply lines. We ambush isolated ships. We make them chase us through our own solar system, where we know every asteroid and every radiation pocket. We use everything. Mines, drones, kinetic weapons, debris. We turn our home into a maze that bleeds them. Park frowned. That's a defensive strategy. We can't win just by defending. We don't need to win militarily, Okoro said. We need to make ourselves too expensive to kill. Show them we'll make them pay in blood for every human life. Show the galaxy what happens when you push humans too far. Make other species think twice before they vote for more genocides. Chen added. And we broadcast everything. Every battle. Every Concordat war crime. Every human who dies defending their home. We make sure the whole galaxy watches. The assembly debated for hours. Voices rose and fell. Some wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. Others wanted to run and hide. But slowly, steadily, a consensus formed. Finally, Okonkwo called for a vote. All in favor of accepting Concordat custodianship? 7 hands raised. All in favor of attempting to flee? 43 hands. All in favor of defending Earth and transmitting the truth to the galaxy? The rest of the room stood up. Nearly 2,000 delegates. Rising together. Okonkwo nodded slowly. Then we're agreed. She turned to Park. Admiral, prepare our forces. General Okoro, I'm reactivating your commission. You'll coordinate our defense strategy. Okoro smiled grimly. About time. Chen stepped forward. What about the Concordat's ultimatum? They'll expect a response. Okonkwo thought for a moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd made a hard choice and accepted the cost. We'll give them a response, she said. Open a channel to the Concordat fleet. All frequencies. Technicians worked quickly. Within minutes, they had a connection. Speaker Valenis appeared on the screen, their colors calm and controlled. Secretary General Okonkwo, Valenis said. Have you made your decision? We have, Okonkwo replied. The people of Earth have reviewed your offer of protective custodianship. We've studied your history. We've learned what your peace really means. Then you understand the gift we offer, Valenis said. We understand it's a lie, Okonkwo said flatly. You're not peace bringers. You're genocidal conquerors who dress up murder in pretty words. You've exterminated hundreds of species and called it enlightenment. Well, humanity has a word for people like you. Tyrants. Valenis's colors darkened. Choose your next words carefully. Our next words are simple, Okonkwo said. No. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will not forget who we are, just to make you comfortable. You want our weapons? Come take them. You want to civilize us? Try. But understand this. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and genocides. We've survived by fighting back. So if you want to add humanity to your list of extinct species, you're welcome to try. But it's going to cost you. Valenus stared at her. You doom your species. Maybe, Okonkwo said. But we'll die human. Can any of your species say the same? She leaned closer to the camera. We're transmitting the archives now. Every species in your concordat is going to see what you really are. Some of them might start asking questions. Some might start remembering. You wanted to teach us about peace? Here's what humans have learned. Peace, without freedom, is just slavery. And we don't do slavery anymore. She cut the connection. The assembly sat in silence. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Soon the whole room thundered with applause. Not celebration, not joy, just grim acknowledgement of the choice they'd made. Chen walked over to Okoro. Do you really think we can win? Okoro looked at her. No idea. But I know we can make them bleed. And sometimes, that's enough. The Concordat fleet moved toward Earth like a wall of steel and light. 63 capital ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Admiral Park watched them come from the bridge of the carrier. Indomitable, humanity's largest warship. They're not even trying to hide, said Commander Rodriguez. Just coming straight at us. Why would they hide? Park replied. They've done this 200 times before. It always works the same way. The human fleet waited near Mars' orbit. 57 ships arranged in a defensive formation. It looked like humanity was preparing for a traditional naval battle. It looked like humans were going to fight the way the Concordat expected. It was all a lie. Admiral, said the communications officer. Incoming transmission from the Concordat flagship. Put it through, Park said. Speaker Valenus appeared on screen. Behind them, the bridge of their ship was pristine and calm. Officers moved with quiet efficiency. Everything looked professional, civilized. Admiral Park, Valenus said, this is your final opportunity to surrender. We do not wish to destroy you. Then leave, Park said simply. You cannot win. Valenus stated. We have superior numbers, superior technology, and 50,000 years of experience. This battle is over before it begins. Park smiled. You know what's funny? Every empire in human history has said something similar right before they lost. The British said it to the Americans. The Americans said it to the Vietnamese. The Romans probably said it to the Germanic tribes. Empires always think size equals victory. Those were conflicts between primitives, Valenus said. We are beyond such things. No, Park said. You just forgot how to fight them. There's a difference. He leaned forward. See? We humans study our wars. We learn from them. We remember that size isn't everything. Sometimes the smaller, weaker side wins, because they're willing to do what the stronger side won't. They're willing to bleed. Willing to sacrifice. Willing to make their enemy pay for every inch. Your philosophy won't save you from our firepower, Valenus said. Maybe not. Park agreed. But it'll make you remember us. Every empire that conquered humans left with scars. Let's see what scars we can give you. Maybe not. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships. Execute pattern Omega. Time to show them what human war looks like. The human fleet scattered. It wasn't a retreat. It was a dispersal. Every ship broke formation and accelerated in different directions. Diving into the asteroid belt. Hiding behind Mars. Using every bit of cover the solar system offered. The Concordat fleet hesitated. This wasn't in their tactical databases. Species were supposed to fight honorably, grouping their forces for a decisive battle. This was chaos. All units, pursue and engage, Valenus ordered. We will hunt them down individually. The Concordat fleet divided to chase the human ships. It was a mistake. The first Concordat cruiser followed a human destroyer into the asteroid belt. The destroyer was slower, damaged, apparently running scared. Easy prey. Then the asteroids exploded. Humans had spent 3 months mining the belt, placing nuclear charges on thousands of rocks. As the Concordat cruiser passed, 50 asteroids detonated simultaneously. The cruiser's shields held against the radiation, but the rocks themselves became shrapnel. Millions of tons of stone and metal tore through the ship at incredible velocity. The cruiser died in 90 seconds. What was that? Demanded Valenus. They weaponized their own environment, said the tactical officer, confusion in their voice. The asteroids were bombs. Across the solar system, other Concordat ships learned similar lessons. A frigate pursued a human ship into Jupiter's radiation belts and found its systems slowly failing, as radiation the humans had learned to shield against destroyed delicate Concordat electronics. 3 destroyers cornered a human carrier near Neptune and prepared to fire. The carrier's engines appeared to fail. It drifted, helpless. The destroyers moved in for the kill. The carrier's cargo bays opened. Thousands of drones poured out, each one little more than an engine, a guidance system, and a nuclear warhead. They were too small and too many for the Concordat's targeting computers. The destroyers tried to shoot them all down and failed. 17 drones got through. That was enough. This is wrong, Valenus muttered, watching their fleet take casualties. They fight without honor, without structure. They fight to win, their second-in-command said quietly. There's a difference, and still the humans broadcast everything. Every battle, every tactic, every Concordat ship. Destroyed. The transmissions went to every inhabited system in the galaxy, wrapped in the historical files Chen had recovered. The galaxy watched. The galaxy learned. On the Concordat world of Withrin 4, a young being watched the broadcasts, with growing confusion. Mother, they asked. The histories say we transcended violence, but the humans show files of our ancestors fighting wars. Which is true? Unquote. The mother couldn't answer. The question had never occurred to her before. Similar conversations happened across the Concordat. Doubt spread like a virus. Back in the Sol system, the battle continued. The Concordat had numbers, but humans had rage. They fought like cornered animals. They used tactics the Concordat had never seen. Kamikaze runs, feigned retreats, false intelligence leaks that led Concordat ships into ambushes. Captain Marcus Webb commanded the carrier Indomitable as it led a Concordat battle group on a chase through the outer system. His ship was damaged. Bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. His crew had been fighting for 16 hours without rest. Captain, they're closing, said Rodriguez. We can't outrun them much longer. Webb looked at his tactical display. 8 Concordat ships pursuing his one carrier. By every logical measure, he should surrender. His ship was crippled, his crew exhausted, the enemy overwhelming. But logic was for people who weren't protecting their home. Take us into Saturn's rings, Webb ordered. Sir, the rings are mostly ice and dust, Rodriguez protested. They won't provide much cover. Not looking for cover, Webb said. Looking for weapons. The Indomitable dove into Saturn's rings with the Concordat ships following. The rings were beautiful, ancient, and full of ice particles ranging from dust-sized to house-sized chunks. Target all ice chunks larger than 10 meters, Webb ordered. Give them maximum delta V toward the enemy ships. Understanding dawned on Rodriguez's face. The carrier's remaining weapons locked onto chunks of ice and pushed them with targeted bursts. The chunks accelerated toward the pursuing Concordat vessels. "They're just ice," Valenus said from their flagship. "Our shields will." The first chunk hit a Concordat destroyer at 70 kilometers per second. The shields stopped the initial impact. But ice doesn't just disappear. It vaporizes, creating a cloud of superheated steam. More chunks followed, each one adding more steam, more energy, more chaos. The Concordat formation broke apart, ships trying to avoid the improvised bombardment. In the confusion, human destroyers that had been hiding in the rings attacked from 3 sides. Webb watched 2 Concordat ships collide as they tried to maneuver through the ice and dodge weapons fire simultaneously. He felt no joy, only grim satisfaction that the plan had worked. "All ships, fall back to Rally Point Beta," Webb transmitted. The human fleet had learned to fight in bursts. Strike hard, fall back, repair, strike again. The Concordat wanted a decisive battle. Humans gave them a long, grinding campaign that wore down both material and morale. 3 weeks into the battle, Valenus sat on their flagship, staring at casualty reports. They'd lost 29 ships. 29. The Concordat hadn't lost that many ships in total in the last 10,000 years. "Why won't they die?" Valenus asked quietly. "Because they're fighting for their home," said their second-in-command. "We're just following orders." "There's a difference." Valenus stood abruptly. "Prepare the civilization engines. We end this now." "Speaker, the Council hasn't authorized." "The Council isn't here." Valenus snapped. "We are, and I will not lose more ships to these primitives. We will sterilize Earth and be done with it." The civilization engines powered up. Massive devices that could make a planet's atmosphere toxic, or cook its surface with radiation. They'd been used against dozens of worlds. They'd never failed. On Earth, sensors detected the energy signatures. "Admiral," the sensor officer's voice shook. "They're preparing to use planet killers." Park had known this moment would come. They all had. Fighting was one thing. But could they really stop weapons designed to end worlds? General Okoro's voice came through from Earth. "Admiral, execute Protocol Valkyrie." Park felt his throat tighten. Protocol Valkyrie. The last resort. "Understood," he said quietly. He opened fleet-wide channels. "All ships. This is Admiral Park. They're going for Earth directly. We can't stop the civilization engines with conventional weapons. So we're not going to use conventional weapons." Every human ship still functional turned toward Earth. They formed a wall between their homeworld and the Concordat fleet. "What are they doing?" Valenus demanded. The human ship's reactors began to overload. Deliberately. Every ship sacrificing itself to create a massive energy barrier between Earth and the incoming civilization engines. "They're creating a shield," the tactical officer said with disbelief. "Using their own ship's deaths as a defensive screen." Webb sat in his captain's chair aboard the Indomitable. His crew stood at their stations. No one spoke. No one needed to. "It's been an honor," Webb said quietly. "Honor to serve with you, sir," Rodriguez replied. The reactor overloaded. For a brief moment, the Indomitable became a star. So did 37 other human ships. The combined energy created a barrier that the civilization engines couldn't penetrate immediately. It bought Earth 48 hours. Enough time to evacuate the major cities. Enough time to move critical infrastructure underground. Enough time to prepare. Valenus watched the sacrifice with something like horror. They're killing themselves to buy their world mere hours. They're buying their world time to survive, the second-in-command corrected. "It's what we would never do. We'd surrender first. We'd preserve ourselves. They preserve their home, even at the cost of everything." Valenus sat down slowly. For the first time in 50,000 years, a member of the Concordat asked themselves a question they'd been taught never to ask. Are we the villains in this story? 6 months after the battle for Earth began, Ambassador Chen stood in the ruins of Geneva. The city had survived the Concordate's bombardment, but barely. Buildings stood like broken teeth against the sky. The streets were cratered. The lake was choked with debris. But the city still stood. Earth still stood. Humanity still stood. Speaker Valenus materialized on the holographic platform across from Chen. The aliens' colors were muted now. Gray and brown, instead of their usual shimmer. They looked tired. Ambassador Chen, Valenus said formally, the Concordate Council has authorized me to discuss terms. Terms of surrender? Chen asked. Terms of peace. Valenus said the word, like it hurt. Chen raised an eyebrow. The Concordat was negotiating. 6 months ago, that would have been unthinkable. But 6 months ago, the Concordat hadn't been falling apart. Tell me, Chen said. How many ships have you lost? Valenus's colors darkened further. 41 capital ships, over 300 support vessels, 78,000 personnel. Chen felt no joy at the numbers. Each one represented lives ended, families destroyed. But she also felt no guilt. And how many humans died? By our estimates, 420 million, Valenus said quietly. The number hit Chen like a physical blow. She'd known it was bad. She'd seen the casualty reports. But hearing it stated so simply made it real in a way numbers on a screen never could. Almost 500 million people, Chen said. Dead, because you decided we needed to be civilized. We did what we thought was necessary. You did what you always do, Chen interrupted. You killed anyone who disagreed with you and called it peace. But this time, it didn't work. We didn't roll over. We didn't accept your version of civilization. We fought back. Valenus was silent for a long moment. You did more than fight. You destroyed us. We didn't destroy you, Chen said. We showed the galaxy what you really are. There's a difference. She was right. The broadcasts had done their work. Across the Concordate, species were waking up from 50,000 years of enforced amnesia. Young beings were asking their elders about the past. Historians were accessing restricted files. Some found nothing, their histories completely erased. Others found fragments, pieces of cultures their ancestors had been forced to abandon. On Ythrin 4, the population discovered their species had once been warriors. Before the Concordate, they'd valued honor and courage and individual achievement. After custodianship, they'd valued conformity and obedience. The young Ythrin didn't know which version was true, but they knew they wanted to choose for themselves. On Kelthara 7, excavation teams had violated Concordate law and entered the memorial zones. They'd found mass graves. Millions of Kelthara who'd refused to surrender. The survivors had been told their ancestors died in a plague. The truth was harder and sharper. 17 Concordate species were in open revolt. Not military revolt, not yet, but cultural revolt. They were rejecting the history they'd been taught. Some were rebuilding warrior traditions. Others were just asking questions. But questions were dangerous to an empire built on lies. The council is fracturing, Valenus admitted. 3 species have withdrawn from the Concordate entirely. 4 have joined your coalition. The rest are undecided. Your peace was built on fear, Chen said. You made people afraid to remember who they were. We reminded them. Now, they're not afraid anymore. Some of them are becoming violent, Valenus said. The Dren have reformed their warcast. The Anthar are trying to undo their genetic modifications. There is chaos spreading through systems that have been peaceful for thousands of years. That's not our fault, Chen said. We didn't create the problem, we just exposed it. You're the ones who built an empire on genocide and called it civilization. Valenus's colors shifted to something like desperation. What do you want from us? Surrender? We cannot surrender. The Concordate is all we have. We don't want the Concordate to surrender, Chen said. We want it to end. Not through force, not through war, but through choice. Let every species choose for themselves whether to stay or leave. Open the archives. Tell the truth about the purification era. Let people decide what kind of peace they want. That would destroy everything we built, Valenus said. Yes, Chen agreed. It would destroy an empire built on lies and replace it with something honest. Messy, complicated, difficult, but honest. Valenus stared at her. You would trust species to choose? Even knowing some might choose war? War is terrible, Chen said. We know that better than anyone right now. But forced peace is worse. At least war is honest about what it is. You dressed up genocide in pretty words and made people thank you for it. Behind Chen, General Okoro walked into the ruins of the conference room. She moved slowly, her injuries from the war still healing. But her eyes were as sharp as ever. Speaker Valenus, Okoro said, I'm glad you're here. I have something to show you. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared, showing construction across Earth, cities being rebuilt, memorials being erected, but also something else. Shipyards. We're building ships, Okoro said, not to attack you, but to protect others. We're creating the Memorial Fleet, warships dedicated to making sure no species ever suffers what the Concordat did to the Vroth, the Kelthara, the Anthar, and all the others. You're building a military force, Valenus said. Maybe, Okoro said. But it'll be honest war. Not genocide disguised as enlightenment. And we're not building this fleet for conquest. We're building it for defense. Any species that wants protection from forced civilization can ask for it. We'll help them stay free. We'll help them stay free. We'll help them stay free. You would appoint yourselves the galaxy's guardians? Valenus asked. No. Chen said. We'd appoint ourselves the galaxy's conscience. Someone needs to remember what was done. Someone needs to make sure it doesn't happen again. You won't do it. You spent 50,000 years forgetting, so we'll remember for you. Valenus looked between them. And if we refuse your terms? If the Concordat chooses to remain as it is, then you'll have to fight every species that wants freedom, Chen said. Not just us, them too. And this time, they'll know what you really are. They'll know your peace is a lie. They'll know surrender means extinction. How many wars can you fight, Valenus? How many species can you kill before even your own people stop believing the lie? Valenus stood silent for a long time. Finally, their colors shifted to something Chen had never seen before. Something that might have been shame. The council will meet, Valenus said. We will discuss your terms. Discuss all you want, Okoro said. But understand this. The old Concordat is dead. You killed it yourselves when you attacked Earth. Now you get to choose what comes next. Real peace based on choice, or endless war against everyone who refuses to forget. Valenus disconnected. Chen and Okoro stood in the ruins, watching the hologram fade. Do you think they'll accept? Chen asked. Some will, Okoro said. Others won't. The Concordat will probably split. Some species will choose to continue the old ways. Others will choose freedom. It'll be messy. Messy beats genocide, Chen said. True enough, Okoro agreed. She looked up at the sky, where human ships patrolled Earth's orbit. We paid a hell of a price for this, though. 500 million dead. Entire cities gone. Our fleet destroyed. But we're still here, Chen said. Still human. They tried to make us surrender who we were, and we refused. That matters. 3 months later, the Concordat Council met for the last time as a unified body. The vote was close, but the result was clear. The Concordat would dissolve. The archives would open. Every species would have access to their true histories. Some species left immediately, eager to rediscover who they'd been before the purification. Others stayed, afraid of what they might find, or clinging to the only identity they'd ever known. A few tried to maintain the old ways, insisting forced peace was better than chosen war. Humanity didn't interfere. They just watched and remembered. On Earth, the memorial wall was completed on the surface of Luna. It stretched for kilometers, covered in names. Every species the Concordat had exterminated. Every culture they'd destroyed. Every civilization they'd erased. At the base of the wall, a simple inscription. They tried to make you forget. We choose to remember. Chen and Okoro stood before the wall on dedication day. Thousands of humans gathered, along with representatives from a dozen other species. Some were from species that had survived the purification. Others were from species just now learning about it. A young Concordat child, one of the few whose parents had chosen to visit Earth, stood beside them. They looked up at the wall, with wide eyes. "Why remember something so terrible?" the child asked. A human child, no older than 7, answered before Chen could. "So we never do it again, and call it peace." The Concordat child thought about this. "But remembering hurts." "Yes," the human child said simply. "But forgetting hurts more. It hurts the people who died. And it hurts us, because we might do the same thing. If we forget." Chen felt tears on her face. She didn't wipe them away. Okoro put a hand on her shoulder. "We won," the old general said quietly. "Not the way we planned. Not without terrible cost. But we won. They tried to make us choose between survival and being human. We chose both. At the cost of 500 million lives," Chen said. "I know," Okoro said. "I know. But those lives weren't lost because we were wrong. They were lost because we were right. Because we refused to let the galaxy's murderers define morality. That matters. It has to matter." End quote. 9. Chen nodded. She looked up at the wall, at the names of species long dead. "We'll make sure it matters," she said. "We'll make sure no one forgets again." Across the galaxy, a new order was forming. Not the clean, simple peace of the Concordat. Something messier, more complicated, more honest. Some species chose isolation. Others chose alliance. A few chose war, old grudges resurfacing after millennia of suppression. But they all chose. That was the difference. The memorial fleet grew. Human ships joined by vessels from other species who understood what forced peace really meant. They didn't police the galaxy. They didn't enforce a new order. They just protected any species that asked, any civilization that wanted to remain free. Years later, historians would debate whether humanity's intervention was right or wrong. Whether the chaos that followed the Concordat's fall was better or worse than the enforced peace before it. Whether 500 million human deaths were worth the freedom of countless other species. But humanity never doubted their answer. They'd faced an empire that called genocide enlightenment, and they'd said no. They'd paid in blood for the right to remain human, and they'd helped others do the same. On Luna, the memorial wall grew. New names were added. But now, they were names of humans and aliens who died defending freedom. Not species exterminated for refusing submission. And at the base of the wall, the inscription remained. "They tried to make you forget. We choose to remember." It was humanity's answer to the massacre the galaxy once called civilized. Not perfect, not clean, not without terrible cost, but honest. And that made all the difference.